Bobby Lashley is leaving the WWE. That's what the dirt sheets are saying. And seemingly, MVP is leaving with him. We're going to talk about this absolutely crazy news that came out over the weekend and a lot more. So stay tuned. This is WrstlXtra.
Yo, this is WrstlXtra. I'm your boy, A Dazzle, the Black Wrestling Advocate. Always joined by my trios team, the Real House of Black, Mex, the WrestleManiac, if you will, Yeet, and of course, the omnipresent man that is Gerard Bonner. He is certainly omnipresent because right now he is in Vegas. Things look a little bit different on his side, but he is here because he is forever omnipresent. Say his name and he will appear. I believe in Gerard Bonner. Let's go.
Absolutely.
So, as Mick said, we heard the news, shocking news. Firstly, that Bobby Lashley, MVP, as well as Tamina, have been removed from the internal roster of the WWE, the roster that they travel with. We still see their names and profiles on the WWE website, and also that all three contracts, their contracts with the WWE, are expected to expire within the next few weeks, a month and a half, maybe at tops. The talk is that over time, since the first news, the news first went out there, everyone's leaving. That's the end of it. Blah blah blah. But rumors are that there is possibilities that Bobby Lashley is reviewing a contract. Apparently, I've seen a lesser contract than what he's getting at the moment. So I've seen. The other side with MVP is that he is basically done. He's just waiting for his contract to run out. He'll be gone, doing his own thing. And let's face it, we haven't seen MVP properly for about a year. We've probably seen him three, maybe four times tops on TV. When he's accompanied Omos, and every single appearance has been for a battle royal. That tells you a hell of a lot about how the WWE sees the use of MVP at the moment. Omos and he have been appearing on live shows, but the last time that they did appear on a live show was in May. Of course, we know with Lashley, I think for a little while he was injured, but he hasn't been seen on our screens, I believe, again since I think it was it his last match was the week after Mania, something along those lines. All sorts is going on. I can't make sense of it. I don't know where to go from here, where they should go. Gerard, have you imagined the possibilities of Bobby Lashley and MVP not being in the WWE, and how do you feel about it?
Well, I have to say I haven't imagined it. It's still one of those things that's kind of challenging to kind of piece together and figure out. Now, of course, both of them have had significant careers outside of the WWE. MVP, the inaugural IWGP Intercontinental Champion. He's done plenty of things. Of course, they both had great work in TNA, and that's really where they really solidified a lot of things as a force on camera. Of course, a former world champion in TNA is Bobby Lashley. He's done quite a bit in MMA. It's interesting to see what they might choose to do in the sport. It feels like MVP may be hanging things up which again, it'd be hard to argue given the career he's had. It's been, I think, a great career. Plus, he's really served as a strong influencer backstage, and really kind of one of those really important forces for Black talent specifically to be able to talk to, which I think is important. I think Lashley obviously is still in fantastic shape. It's completely up to him what he might choose to do at this point. I know a lot of people might say, you know, automatically they think AEW, but there's a part of me that thinks TNA might be a really cool move at this stage of his career. You know, obviously with a crossover with WWE, that's cool. But I think TNA, even as a standalone, could be a cool move for Bobby Lashley. I think in both cases, we have to consider that we are closer to the tail end of both of their careers. And it's completely up to them at this point if they choose to stay in the business. If they don't, they've had an absolutely incredible career and owe us nothing. If they do, I hope the last, whatever this last run might be for them, is exactly what they want it to be.
You know, obviously, you know, you mentioned, Gerard, that MVP and Bobby Lashley probably formed a friendship during their time in Impact a few years back. MVP had the BDC and the Beatdown crew. And Beatdown Clan, sorry. And of course, they then formed, along with Shelton Benjamin and Cedric Alexander, the Hurt Business. We found out over recent months, we've been clamoring for the Hurt Business to come back. You know, they were a thing between 2020, 2022. We've been begging for it to come back in some sort of fashion, whether it be the original 4, a new version with MVP in there somewhere, something like that. We found out in recent months that when the idea was put forward to Triple H and the rest of the writers and heads of WWE, it was shut down. I believe Shelton Benjamin, in his very open interview with Chris Van Vliet a few weeks back, mentioned this as well, that, you know, at one point there was talk, and out of nowhere it just stopped happening. Another thing that's come out over the last few weeks, and especially with this, and kind of resurfaced with this news of MVP's contract running out and him may possibly leaving, was that he himself, you know, had responded to people on Twitter and said that Triple H just said no. Mex, what are your thoughts when it comes to this whole thing of the Hurt Business, and with both guys potentially leaving? And obviously, you know, Shelton Benjamin's not with the WWE anymore. Could we possibly see the Hurt Business somewhere else?
I mean, Shelton Benjamin said it best in his interview with Chris Van Vliet, that the Hurt Business could still be running today. Like, and especially with Triple H's investment of factions, whether it be the higher level factions, top of the card factions like Judgment Day and Bloodline, or the Alpha Academies, the Final Testaments, those, like, he clearly thinks factions make sense. Good way to get a lot of people on TV at once. No reason why you couldn't have just used these guys. He was using Bobby Lashley up until Bobby Lashley got injured with this Street Profits thing, which they seemingly never really committed to, because we don't really know what it ever was. But you didn't want to kind of use Hurt Business. And I remember my jaw dropping when I was at Wale Mania earlier this year. And it was either, it might have been Shelton Benjamin that said that, you know, this is the only time the Hurt Business have been in front of a live crowd. When they all 4 of them were standing on the stage at Wale Mania, and I'm like, wow. You know, this was something that we all enjoyed during the pandemic, but truth be told, they never saw the light of day. Like, the real live audience never saw them. So yeah, it's definitely a missed opportunity or a dropped ball. In the sense of continuing it elsewhere, like, they done the thing where they all have championships, which is like kind of the best that faction can kind of do.
Of course.
So where they would continue to, and what their kind of MO would be interesting. I want to see these guys in jobs. I want to see them do well. I don't necessarily need them to turn up in AEW and take Takeshita's TV time or some other kind of younger talents and stuff. As you mentioned, you know, these guys are in the September of their career. Like, we don't need them to kind of start coming and stunting other people's, or even, you know, you can have like a Leo Rush that is seemingly coming back to prominence, or, you know, what's these guys, the brothers, Top Flight, and stuff like that. Like, we just don't need them kind of taking up other people's time and stuff like that. Or if he goes to TNA, which I thought of, but at the same time, if he's with WWE, surely they could have just done something to just give him to TNA for an extended period if that's where he wanted to be. Do we need him now stepping on the likes of Moose's toes, or a Dolph Ziggler who's just become champion over there? Like, I think it's a difficult one. I do want to see them turn up somewhere, but it's all about the role that you're willing to play. If money wasn't an issue and stuff like that, I would want to see him in New Japan. Bobby Lashley in New Japan, wrecking guys. Like, I think that could be something and really give his, like, almost a second career sort of thing. But yeah, I just think that the Hurt Business has probably happened now, and we all know when it comes to presentation, WWE won't be beaten. I just don't know if anywhere else can really bring that same aura to what we had during the whole pandemic. Right. Not even, you know, the bright lights of WrestleMania Hurt Business didn't see. So yeah, I don't know if I necessarily need to see it elsewhere again.
Yeah, I think that's exactly where I'm seeing it as well, in terms of like the presentation, you know, where they're going to be on the card now if they were to reform and all that kind of stuff. The only place that could happen in any kind of authenticity or any big way would be in the WWE. It's clearly now not going to happen. Shelton Benjamin's not there anymore. It's almost certain MVP's gone. There's still maybe a chance with Bobby Lashley, but, you know, after what they have done with Bobby Lashley over the last year or so, I don't see, you know, the Hurt Business coming back in the same way or to a level that we'd be satisfied with. I think for me, the only way the whole Hurt Business thing would have or could have worked would be of, you know, a different version of it. You know, we had the discussions however many, you know, a year or two ago, when Carmelo looked like he was, you know, bound for the main roster. You know, put Carmelo in there, maybe Omos. We saw that picture with, you know, the Street Profits and Bobby Lashley and MVP together. We all got excited. And I think for me, that would have been the only way for any level of Hurt Business, you know, to kind of reform and be relevant. To see them somewhere else, no thanks. Wouldn't want to see at AEW. No way. No way. No way. For anyone to even fathom that, no way. Because after what I've seen of what they've done with Shane Taylor Promotions, how does the Hurt Business work then? Because go on.
God, sorry, I was just going to add, like, it's crazy that AEW kind of used the faction model, which was kind of popular from New Japan and stuff like that. They're very quick to start a faction in AEW, but then seeing it through has seemingly been a big issue, which bar the elite, who probably write their own stuff, everyone else, when they're in a faction, it doesn't really hit at all. So yeah, in AEW, I don't know.
Yeah, I wouldn't be, and I even without the Hurt Business, I just don't see Bobby Lashley fitting in AEW anyway. MVP, wherever, whenever, however, it doesn't really matter. You know, he's kind of, as Gerard said, he's now, you know, that point of his career is more of a mentor than an active wrestler. He would still call himself active, and he hasn't retired from in-ring competition, but there are more spaces for him to fit in than there would be a Bobby Lashley, for sure. Again, you know, I can only really go by history and experience of what we've seen with how AEW have used talent in the past. And whether you want to be specific about whether it be big guys or even black guys or big black guys, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. You know what I mean? We've seen what Will Hobbs, Keith Lee, anyone. Shane Taylor's kind of been underused. I like the fact that he's got his you know his aura and all the rest of it, and his aggression. But what is he doing? He's just being used as the guy to put over whoever they want to be the next big guy. You know what I mean? The next big thing. Or their next champion or whoever it is. So yeah, AW just no. I think TNA is a possibility. Both of them, of course, have history there. Have history together there as well as individual history. And then New Japan, I think, would probably, it's not something I thought of until Mix actually just said it. New Japan might be a decent idea if it was the two of them together. And I say that mainly because MVP has history there, and in a way, it would almost feel like Paul Heyman and Brock Lesnar.
Yeah.
I could see that.
It would be that. Yeah, it would be that. And then, of course, Bobby having the history and, you know, championships that he's had and all the rest of it, coming into New Japan as a new guy, blah, blah, blah. That could possibly work.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
anything else, I'm not sure.
New Japan lack this. Hence why everyone is leaving New Japan.
Yes, true.
And if he's not going to sign because WWE aren't going to give him the right money, I don't see how New Japan will, unless they are robbing a bank prior to his arrival.
Yeah, true. So, as I said, you know, there's strong possibility, almost 95% certain that MVP is gone, but there's still a chance that Bobby Lashley stays. Gerard, what happens if Bobby Lashley were to stay? How do we utilize Bobby Lashley in the correct way if he stays, or do you see that there is one?
Well, considering that the last time we were supposed to see him was supposed to be in the King of the Ring tournament, it feels to me like if they're going to use him, then it's time to put the rocket ship back on him. You know, think about the run that he had 2021, 2022, you know, when he was world champion, and he was a dominant world champion. And I mean, he did a lot of amazing things. You know, that first WrestleMania match, you know, during the pandemic in 21, where he opened the show and beats Drew McIntyre to retain, and we were all shocked, you know, so I think for him, it has to be that way. He has been kind of stuck in a holding pattern since 2023. We all were wondering, you know, and I was the champion of the whole cause of Brock versus, you know, Bobby Lashley at WrestleMania in 23. And when that didn't happen, ever since then, he's been on this just holding pattern of doing things that have not really mattered. And so if he's going to stay in WWE, it's time to put the rocket ship on him. The good thing is we're not in the middle of a Roman Reigns, you know, historic 4-year championship reign. So he can automatically become a top contender to a Cody Rhodes or to, you know, whoever the world champion will be at this point, whether it is whether it is Gunther or if it's Damian Priest. I mean, he can do either of those things. If they're not going to pull the trigger on this whole pride situation, let him break away and just be his own guy and rip through people. You know, we don't have that massive big man presence. And can you imagine at some point a Brock Lesnar, why am I saying Brock Lesnar's name so much? A Bobby Lashley, Jacob Fatu situation. Like, that would be a ridiculous kind of match. I think you put him in those kinds of spaces where he's back at the top. He should be getting the kind of respect that a Randy Orton gets. He should be getting that kind of respect at this point in the WWE. So if he's going to stay, he's got to shoot to the top of the card and be involved in meaningful matches and meaningful feuds.
You know, we've seen him hovering around, you know, as you mentioned, King of the Ring. You know, he's done number one contender triple threat matches and qualifying matches for #1 contender, but always loses at that final hurdle. Mex, do you see a place where Bobby Lashley returns with the pride and something actually happens with this group?
I could see it. It's not a foregone conclusion. I think the one positive of the situation is that it's been said WWE offered him a contract. That it's maybe he just denied, turned it down. There maybe some way a part of money, and money at the same time reflects where they see you on the card and stuff. So
For sure.
I think his days in this current iteration of WWE challenging at the top, like he can challenge. I don't think he'll be WWE champion again, if I'm to make like that kind of prediction. But he can still kind of dominate that. The United States Championship has been somewhat rehabilitated. That was his work as well, rehabilitating that title a couple of years back. So something like that could be very good for him, and more so to, like we're saying, help that next generation. The Street Profits have completely stagnated. Completely. Like, they can call themselves the Pride, they can wear different clothes, they can come out with B-Fab. They have completely stagnated as an act together. So even if it's Bobby helping to legitimize them, they have a heel turn. They appear more tough. They can get back to being tag team champions and stuff like that. If we have a situation over this next week where I think they're involved in this, is it a gauntlet match or whatever it is, on a #1 contender for the tag titles, and they fail, and in the next couple of weeks Bobby Lashley re-signs with the company, bring him out in a big way. Like, what are you lot doing? Like, fix up. We're gonna go back to the drawing board, start again. Let's really commit to these guys. This is what we're doing. I think he still has that place to play, especially where we're getting, it could be guys on the other side, but Carmelo Hayes, he brushed shoulders with Carmelo Hayes in the last few appearances. Braun Breaker on the other side, Ilya Dragunov. There's these guys that are on the cusp of needing that rub, and Bobby Lashley is the kind of legitimate veteran now at this point that you're fighting a former WWE champion, pretty much a Grand Slam champion, bar maybe what a tag team title.
Tag team, that's it.
So let's be completely honest. Like, he still has a massive role to play on the existing roster. And I think if WWE are just kind of thinking long term, like that's his value. That's where he can still add a lot more value.
I struggle to think what it is that has prevented the WWE, Triple H, whoever it is, from actually putting in the work for that group, or even for Bobby Lashley specifically, because we've praised Triple H for recently kind of listening to the fans. That's why we see LA Knight still high part of the card, and Jey Uso's on every main event every week, and all this kind of stuff. And funnily enough, even with the confusion of this group and the pride and what it was and what it isn't and what it's supposed to be, and we don't know what it is, and blah blah blah, every single time Bobby Lashley comes out, the crowd goes nuts. So for that reason alone, I'm just like, so what is it? Again, he's still in phenomenal shape. He doesn't look as though he's slowed down in any way. He's probably gotten better since he actually came back to the WWE. Gerard, can you think of a reason why we've not seen that push that we want to see?
I just wonder if he's in a space where he wants to do it, because there's nothing physically that appears to be wrong. He still seems to have the go. He definitely has the star power. To me, it now is just a question of, is there something on his end where he's saying, I'm not sure how much longer I want to do this? That to me is the only logical explanation.
Sorry, Gerard, when you say do this, you mean be with the Street Profits or do wrestling?
Do wrestling, period.
Okay.
You know, I mean, think about it. He has been doing this since what, 2004, 2005, somewhere in there. So we're talking close to 20 years, you know, of travel, putting your body on the line. And 20 years is a significant amount of time. And so to me, the only explanation that makes sense is, do I still want to put my body on the line? Do I still want to wrestle as much? I mean, just from a longevity perspective, he has earned, well, not just that, but even his resume, he has earned the right to be able to say, I only want to show up this time, that time, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what makes me wonder, if he chooses not to sign this contract with WWE, it makes me wonder, is he done? Because in my mind, sure, there's still a lot we'd like to see him do. But after 20 years, you know, he's obviously written a ticket such that if he doesn't want to continue, he doesn't have to. So that's the only thing that makes sense to me, is him saying, perhaps my time in the sport of wrestling is done, or nearing being done, because you don't feel like putting your body on the line like that.
Just on that, yeah. Surely that should mean then WWE is the best place to stay. And
agreed.
If he has conveyed that kind of message to them, maybe that's why the contract is reportedly less. If you're not going to be wrestling as much, and maybe we kind of slide you into more of a manager, on-screen manager role for Street Profits or whomsoever, then you have the contract that, you know, equals the role you're playing on TV. Because if he goes to AEW, and it's not a slight on Bobby, obviously Bobby's not known for being a fantastic mic man. He's fine on the mic, but you know, it's not why you sign Bobby Lashley, sort of thing. Bring him in for his ability, his experience, his intensity. If he goes to AEW, boy, you're gonna have to wrestle. Like, because in case you haven't heard, that's what happens over there. That's where the best go, when they wrestle. Like,
the best wrestlers wrestle.
That's what happens. So like, you're gonna have to wrestle if you go to AEW. TNA as well, you're gonna have to wrestle, sort of thing. New Japan, like we said, you're definitely gonna have to wrestle, because you don't even.
That's the only thing you can do.
Exactly.
True.
So, like, if that is what he wants, which is a fair point by yourself, Gerard. Like, surely this is the right place, and maybe it is just purely a matter of the money doesn't equal what he wants, and they might need to have a discussion on that, because you don't leave WWE at this point to go and wrestle less, unless you just want to do like indies and pick and choose. But I'm sure you could do that for a better deal in WWE.
It's interesting. I asked the question initially about why, you know, has he not been used and all the rest of it, because it also brings me on to something that I've seen quite often over the last few weeks, and this has kind of intensified it even more. I remember putting out the post, and we were all excited about just how much Shawn Michaels is using black talent in NXT. You know, obviously we're going off the YouTube video that Alfred Conower did, and the report on Forbes.com. When posting that, there was a few comments that were like, well, let's not get too excited, because this is the third brand and we're not seeing it happening on the main roster. Since this news, after posting this news now, I'm seeing a lot of Triple H is a racist, or that kind of, that kind of narrative, as our black talent's not being used properly and blah, blah, blah. When I first saw that stuff, when I put out the NXT post, I was like, oh, you lot are just down. It's not that. When I see a little bit of me is thinking, there are a few points people are making that makes me think they kind of have a point. Not to say that I'm going to turn around and say, outright saying Triple H is a racist and blah, blah, blah. I don't think it's that. But at the same time, there is enough for people to kind of make that assumption, or to go or to pull out that card, I think. Do you think, I'm looking at Gerard's face, it's so puzzled, so I'm going to go to you first, mate. Do you see, if you were to look at, how our talent's been used on the main roster in probably the last year or so, we can see Bobby Lashley has been used right. the singles push of Montez Ford has disappeared. People are arguing, Bianca and Jade, or Bianca specifically, is not a singles champion anymore, and blah blah blah. Is there any meat really to these accusations coming from the black fans of wrestling at the moment?
I'm trying to choose my words carefully here. I'm just concerned sometimes that people just want to be mad. Because I'm thinking to myself, as you're calling Triple H this, did you not forget that at WrestleMania, there was a black woman who served as ring announcer for every single match over the 2 nights? Have we forgotten that we have black female ring announcers on both Raw and SmackDown for the first time ever, simultaneously? There are no men who are serving as ring announcers on your main roster. The rollout that Jade Cargill got doesn't feel racist to me. Naomi continuing to be, in these conversations, though she hasn't won championships, doesn't feel racist to me. And I'm trying to figure out what black talent you think is being held down. Who was the #1 draft pick on SmackDown? A black man from NXT, right? So I'm just trying to understand who you feel like is being held back. I think what we have to realize is there's a cycle in wrestling. And in that cycle, you're going to have your moments where you ascend. You have moments where you'll hang, and you'll have moments where you'll descend. You have to pull back so somebody else gets to step up. Where Bianca and Jade have been positioned have been a great place. It's been a great place. Think about the fact that we had 3 black females, in a marquee match at WrestleMania together. I mean, it's incredible. So, and people are like, why do you keep going back to WrestleMania? It was 3 months ago, because it was the biggest WrestleMania of all time. And if there were ever a place to display that point where you think black talent isn't being used, we had a lot to talk about WrestleMania weekend that had nothing to do with the main event because of the way that our talent was being used. And so again, you have to remember there's a cycle. And in my head, I'm thinking to myself, okay, so which African-American wrestlers do you think should be at the top of the card that currently aren't? Right now, it just so happens that there's almost a log jam in terms of development for who's in NXT right now. That just happens to be that way. We didn't have anything to do with that. That's the way the athletes came in. That's the way they were developed. And so for this cycle that people are talking about now, in about 2 years, there's going to be another group of people saying that Triple H believes in affirmative action because of how many people from NXT will be on the main roster crushing it. So I think people need something else to talk about, because there's no real merit to this conversation. There just isn't. And to call that man a racist is ridiculous. There are too many good things that have happened and that are currently happening to say that we have black women referees on the main roster. So I also think this. I don't think that, people are thinking big picture here. Because if you look at a role like ring announcer, referee, commentator, if you look at those as ancillary small roles, you're missing it. They're a vital part to what the business has that has not regularly been populated by people who look like us. And so whatever your opinion is of Booker T, of Byron Saxton, we've got these people in these places who are performing at top levels. I think people are mad about nothing. Save that energy for when you really need it, because now's not the time.
Very true. Max, your thoughts?
Do I think Triple H is a racist? No. No, I don't. I mean, to play devil's advocate a bit, two things can be correct. He could be a racist, but he could see the value in some of these black talents and want to push them. True. I don't think he's a racist. True. I think with what Gerard said. Everyone has their season. Some people, this is their time, others aren't. I will continue to go back to, because I think it's a very good explanation, when Jinder Mahal, Veer, Mahan, them man were all released. They talked about their trajectory for what they're earning and that there's not growth. They could be looking at the Bobby Lashley situation in a very similar way. Like, for what you have left, what you can offer us, or what we think you can offer us, and the money that you're demanding, yeah, we're gonna have to talk. Like the best thing that's happened, which Dijak has been very vocal about. He didn't even get offered a new contract. He was kind of stringed along to think he was gonna get one, which is poor. But Bobby Lashley has been offered a new contract,
right,
despite it maybe not being to his liking currently. Like, I just think Triple H nurtured the likes of a Sasha Banks, the platform she has today. Low-key begged for her to return to the company under his stewardship, but she wanted to continue doing what, and inspecting the rest of the world, what the rest of the world had to offer. This man is single-handedly responsible for the career of Bianca Belair.
Right.
I mean, yes, there's other people that would have brought her in, coached her, etc., etc. I don't want to hear it. Triple H is single-handedly the person that's putting her in all of these positions. She even recently done a post to say, for all of these moments she's had in her first kind of real breakout moment in the Mae Young Classic, the Royal Rumble she won, the WrestleMania main event. There was another one, I forget, that he was there for all of them. Every single one. She was the first person when she went back to Gorilla that greeted her, sort of thing. There's too many. We saw the love.
There's way too many.
There's too many.
There's way too many
to say that this guy doesn't like. And yes, like I said, two things can be true, but like, sometimes leave the black card alone. Leave it alone. Leave it at home. It's not because we're black than this, and we start kind of looking for the black card everywhere. Like, sometimes it's not your season. Sometimes just admit you're not good enough. Like, you're not there yet, or whatever the case may be. So, yeah, I've been seeing those same accusations over the weekend, and I just laugh. I just think it's embarrassing, like, sort of thing. Like, let it go, man.
And you mentioned Bianca Belair in the Mae Young Classic, and it also reminded me of two people that were in these tournaments that were not signed to WWE, and after the crowd shouted for them to be signed, Triple H came out for Cedric Alexander, literally came out during the chant, during the show, and offered him a contract there and then. Same thing happened with Mia Yim.
That's right.
There are way too many incidents, careers, not even incidents, because you can talk about moments and make that and devalue that because it's a moment, but there are so many moments, there are so many different people's careers that have been elevated because of this guy, or under his supervision, or under his management, or whatever it is. Like you said, you mentioned Sasha Banks, Bianca Belair, Keith Lee. There are so many. Carmelo Hayes, you can still talk about Carmelo because it wasn't Shawn Michaels running things the whole time. Right. It's Triple H.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. There are so many. So while people may have an argument in terms of what's happened in the last few months and try and turn that into something, you can't just use that as in the same way I just said. A moment is a small amount of time, but there was still so much more to look at, to draw upon to make a better conclusion. And like you said, Mex, some people, their time's up. We've said the possibility of Lashley himself probably not do as much, possibly. I think last week, I can't remember if it was before or after the news came out, but he's posted, him with his 3 kids, saying it's been great to have family time, blah, blah, blah. Maybe he wants to spend more time with his family. He's probably missed a hell of a lot of stuff, and I know he has, even down to his own personal circumstances, has missed out on stuff as well. So, yeah, this whole racism, black card, blah blah. Just let us just slow down.
Like Triple H has done some questionable things in the past,
of course,
that we can't forget about.
Of course.
At the same time, we know who was, who he was answering to and stuff ahead of him, and if you're calling him racist because of stuff he done the best part of 20 something years ago, then I don't know. I think, like you said, like Gerard said, you just want to be mad, Shelton Benjamin with Yoshitatsu said some funny stuff about Japanese. Like, you see what I mean? I'm sure we don't all go around thinking Shelton Benjamin's a racist.
Right.
So let's pick and choose. Let's just be guided and stop being mad.
It's crazy stuff. It's crazy stuff. Moving away from here, I think, are we ready to? Yeah, moving away from here. There were so many points to just this thing alone. I'm just making sure we covered everything, but I think we have. But moving away from,
can I just add one last thing?
Yeah, go.
So on this interview, Shelton Benjamin said, Chris Van Vliet asked him, "Would you return to the WWE?" And he kind of stumbled around, like saying, "Oh, well, it's the biggest show in town. It was something you have to think about." And then he just conceded, like, "Yes, I would go back. I would go back if they called me back." Giving this news now of MVP out the door, Lashley out the door, potentially hurt business elsewhere, do you think he would still go back if the opportunity was offered to him? Or do you think, okay, if these guys are going to come outside, we might have a chance to kind of link up and do something outside?
I think with MVP gone, it definitely narrows the percentage in a big way. I think, and I'm sure Shelton has said this before, I can't remember where or when, how MVP was definitely very, very much instrumental in him having a resurgence in WWE, obviously with the Hurt Business, all the rest of it. Them two are very close friends outside of the ring, outside of WWE as well. MVP's even trained him in jiu-jitsu now. Them two are still very close. So I think with MVP gone, I think it would make a massive difference. How the WWE would use him if they were to bring him back, that would be questionable. So that would be on his mind as well. So I don't think if he was offered, which I don't think would happen, I don't think I could see him going back. But Shelton Benjamin, but at the same time, Shelton Benjamin's a nice guy. So if they offered him, he'd consider it. He'd definitely consider it. He wouldn't just say flat out no, definitely not. But I think there would be more more concerns for him now than if it was offered him like 2 weeks ago or something.
I think he would go back, and I don't think that MVP leaving has any influence on that. And the reason being is, when you spent, here was a guy who really didn't do the indies prior to coming to WWE. And so being trained there, even spending time in Ring of Honor as he did, and this new run that he's having on the indies now, there's such a massive difference between how the WWE does things and how independent organizations do things. And I mean, the difference is even in things that most people wouldn't think about. And so I think the opportunity to be able to go back and contribute at that level, and again, contributions for him could mean multiple things. It may not necessarily mean in ring. He's the opportunity to go back, obviously do some work in ring if he wanted to, but here's a guy who could use a lot of that wisdom at the PC. Think about how these wrestlers could turn out in ring with a Shelton Benjamin coaching you. That's a game-changing kind of thing. So I think that there are, again, when you step away and have the opportunity to see how the other half lives, you get to see, okay, was it really good where I was? Was it not so much? And nobody does things the way that WWE does. So I think even though MVP is leaving or whatever, again, I think Shelton Benjamin isn't looking to wrestle for the next 20 years. I don't know that he's looking to wrestle the next 10 years in ring all the time. So I think for someone who loves the business and would want to contribute in the way that he would, I think the opportunity, he definitely go back regardless of who is or isn't there.
Just on that, he did say that coaching was discussed. It's just a matter of him kind of activating that option. And that, he doesn't want to wrestle until, quote unquote, the wheels fall off. But he definitely still has like a couple more years left in him.
Yeah, I can definitely see him in a backstage role and, you know, all that kind of stuff. Whether it be a trainer, producer, whatever it is, that would definitely suit him. In an in-ring space, I very much doubt that would happen. Obviously, they let him go for those reasons more than anything. But yeah, any kind of backstage role would be perfect for him and him for the WWE. Simple as that. Simple as that. But moving away a little bit, we had Slammiversary, TNA Slammiversary happened over the weekend. A lot of things happened. Probably not as many surprises. Oh, wow, there were a few surprises, but not necessarily the NXT interference type surprises, I guess, was probably missing, you know, in terms of what people were probably expecting from that night. Some of the highlights that we saw, or some of the bigger things that we saw, AJ Francis lost his Digital Media Championship and International Wrestling Championship to the Canadian Frankenstein that is PCO. A very entertaining match. It was actually a very, very entertaining match. Good match to watch. On a high note, the ABC with Chris Bay and Ace Austin defeated the System to become, I think it's 3-time tag team champions as well. Furthermore to that, the System was further broken after Moose lost his TNA championship, surprisingly not to Joe Hendry, but to Nick Nemeth, who won the 6-man elimination match. I think the surprising part for most people when it came to Joe Hendry was that, gosh, I completely forgot his name, the Walking Weapon.
Josh Alexander.
Josh Alexander. I just had his name in my head. Turned on him, low blow, finisher, then, you know, continued to beat him up after he pinned him and stuff like that. What's crazy is, I'm going to say this real quick, and I only just realized it about 2 hours ago, and it made me jump out of my seat. We discussed this last week, with Joe Hendry's involvement with NXT, the possibility of him facing Ethan Page for the NXT Championship. And when I saw Josh Alexander beating him down, I was like, what? Why? But, you know, it's a character thing for Josh Alexander. Brilliant. Great. 2 hours ago, a light turned on. It made me jump out of my seat. Of course, Josh Alexander and Ethan Page used to be the North tag team in TNA, who were ridiculously dominant in their time in TNA. And I don't think it's this whole thing of, you know, Joe Hendry is a threat to my friend. I think it's more so Josh Alexander's going to have his own beef. Then you're going to have Joe Hendry with Page having their beef. And then eventually, Josh Alexander in TNA. I mean, in NXT. With Joe Hendry and Trick Williams. Yeah. I think that's where we're going. But in all of this, as I said, Moose has now lost his championship. One of the things that we have mentioned before is the possibility of Moose appearing in NXT in some way. But the only way that could happen is if he lost his championship. Do we now see the fact that he has lost his championship? Are we actually building to this, or is this just something completely separate for TNA? Mex, what do you think?
Yeah, I think they'll do it. I don't know whereabouts in the timeline, but, you know, I think that after maybe a lot of it was obviously there anyway, but the fans making noise about it. We got the Rascals. Obviously, no partnership at this stage would have been complete without Joe Hendry showing up. So they've done that, and they're slowly ticking the boxes. Like you said, they've got this web now with Joe Hendry and Ethan Page and Josh Alexander. So hopefully we could see something there. And then the one they've been speaking about online, Obafemi and Moose, like Obafemi needs challengers. At this point, definitely needs challengers. We're running out of people, especially within the company, that we can believe will take the title from him. So yeah, if we can get someone like a Moose over there as well, that could be really good. Have a match on the next PLE, No Mercy or whatever it could be. And yeah, I think Obafemi probably still retains. I don't think they'll shock the world and do something like putting one of the titles on the TNA. I'm not against it, but I just don't think they will do it. But yeah, I don't see how we don't get this match. It's just a matter of when. Yeah.
Gerard, in terms of the possibilities, we've seen, something I mentioned last week. We've seen a lot of TNA come to NXT. And when it comes to NXT talent, it's been the lower card, I guess, that have gone over to TNA. What do you think is best here? If we're getting Moose and Obafemi, does Moose come to NXT? Does Obafemi go to TNA? Which one happens? Does it matter?
I think at some point it'll both happen. I think Moose shows up at NXT first, because honestly, that's probably the bigger piece of news. Many have wanted to see Moose show up in a WWE context. True. Him showing up there would blow the roof off of the place, and the stare down, and here's why. First of all, it'll be live, right? Like on doing this on TNA, it'll get spoiled. So it has to happen live. And I think they're going to blow the roof off the place. I really do. And I think Obafemi will show up over there kind of as a follow-up to something that Moose would do to him over in NXT. But that's definitely the play. Moose showing up in NXT unsolicited is going to hit a lot harder than Obafemi. Nothing against Obafemi. But yeah, I think it has to happen there first. Then TNA shows that clip on their show, so that when Obafemi shows up over there, the TNA fans will be extremely aware.
In terms of this NXT upper echelon going to TNA, obviously we saw Wesley make an appearance on TNA programming in a treehouse reunion with the Rascals as well, which was amazing. It was funny to hear him say it was his TNA debut, which technically it actually was.
Yes, Wesley,
technically it was, because Desmond Xavier was actually on Impact,
correct, not
TNA as well. So you've got that. But of course, we then saw the three of them come together, take on the No Quarter Catch crew. A phenomenal match, and I think this is also not just for me to get excited about the Rascals, but I think the other thing that stood out for me was Tavion Heights. Mex, just talk to me a little about, Tavion Heights and where he is now, where he could be going, and just how important, I guess, him being part of this no quarter catch crew is for him.
It's a great fit for him. And I mean, I think we spoke about this last week, or the week that we heard that Dame Kemp was leaving. It's just, in the most respectful way, an upgrade on that same kind of position, just in terms of the energy he gives on screen, just in segments, or even where Charlie Dempsey's talking, just energy bubbling up within him, sort of thing. The charisma, he's definitely got that WWE it factor, mixed with the wrestling credential, which we knew he had. This guy he's gonna be a talent. He's definitely gonna be a big talent. And I've been on his Instagram a lot recently, just kind of just enjoying the nonsense he gets up to and the skits he kind of does with the other NXT talent. And I'm just thinking, as long as this guy keeps his head screwed on, and he's still young, still having fun and stuff like that. As long as he keeps his head screwed on, surely he's going to the very top. And I think it's just one of them ones where they've seen it. The time was right. They're pushing him. He's got this crossover experience now in TNA. He's gonna go over and do the N1 tournament in Noah. He's being given a lot right now, so it's just to remember he's representing this company, and to definitely put himself off on the best foot to kind of just show he is, as good as we're saying he is right now. I think the sky is the limit for him. They've got a big talent there.
We've seen the likes of a Jason Jordan. Of course, we had the unfortunate story, I guess, really of Gable Steveson, the expectation that was there. Damon Kemp was another one who's kind of come in but exceeded expectation, but still not quite what WWE were looking for, or not their answer, I guess. Gerard, do you feel as though Tavion Heights is kind of like ticking every box in a sense where everyone else that I've just mentioned ticked boxes, but they're not every box? Does Tavion Heights tick every box?
He definitely does. I mean, I think of the guys that you mentioned, Damon Kemp, Jason Jordan, Gable Steveson, the one thing that first of all, Tavion Heights is arguably more athletic than all three of them.
Oh, for sure.
Which is a major statement. But he also has charisma. He has personality, and that's something that those three did not have. And that's a necessary part in WWE. We talked before about AEW, where the best wrestlers wrestle. And that's primarily what they do, is wrestle. They don't exude a lot of personality. There are some rare cases. And when those people do, those are the ones that we look at the top of the card. But I think Tavion Heights, he has that it factor because he has all of those things. He has this great look. His athleticism is crazy. I mean, some of the things he does, I'm just like, you're too tall and big to do that, but he does it, and he does it with this swag and with this personality where you're like, I need to pay attention to that guy right there. And so I think those things differentiate him from Kemp and Steveson and Jason Jordan. And so, that's what's making him special. And I guess we know that by the fact that they've sent him over to TNA. Now they're sending him over to Noah. I mean, you're not going to send people away like that from NXT. Usually, we saw last week or so, it was AJ Styles and Io Sky getting that call. But for Tavion Heights, who hasn't been in the business long at all, to get that call, that's special. That's very, very special.
Yeah, it definitely means a lot. And for him to be under as well the guys of, Charlie Dempsey, who I'm calling, the key holder of the Forbidden Door. He just goes everywhere. I think would definitely adds to his experience, the knowledge, the same type of, in terms of the technical styles, all that kind of thing. And another person, because you mentioned athleticism as well, and we've talked about this guy already in length, that he does remind me of as well is Shelton Benjamin. Another one with amateur wrestling experience and, high expectations and but just lacking in that charisma element, that kind of really made the difference, probably to where his career probably could have gone, and stuff like that.
The one thing on part with all these guys that we're mentioning, I actually do believe, obviously, Shelton, we eventually saw the charisma with the gold standard stuff. What's his name? Damon Kemp, we eventually saw the charisma, like post Diamond Mine sort of thing. Jason Jordan, we eventually saw the charisma when he was Kurt Angle's son. Like all of them eventually started getting to this point. But Tavion Heights, as part of the nil process, he has to show it from day one.
Right.
There's no okay, we're gonna hold back on this. Like, let your wrestling get you there. Like, everything needs to be in order now as part of you to kind of keep progressing through NXT and get these opportunities. He's got to show this charisma a lot earlier than the rest of these guys, where maybe the emphasis was just to make sure you're wrestling safe and not hurting anybody.
Right.
You know, in WWE, wrestling is secondary. I don't think it's an insult to say that. It's more about being a WWE superstar and everything that entails. And yeah, he's just kind of got to work. Like, this is the assignment. I understand it. I get it. Let's go, sort of thing. So he's shining right now. And yeah, he's got Charlie Dempsey and Miles Bourne next to him, which those guys are having a good run at things right now and having some fun. But you know, Dempsey will always be cool because of who his dad is, and he's very talented anyway. Miles will kind of, I don't want to say tick a box because of the disability and stuff, but he's very good. But that's also going to help him for that kind of representation side of things.
Of course.
But yeah, Tavion right now for me is showing the most rounded out of all of them. Like, he's just come here to kind of he doesn't have any kind of, you know, nepotism helping him or, you know, anything else to feel like he's just very good at his job right now.
And even just to shout out Miles Bourne, as much as you mentioned, you know, the fact that he's partially deaf and that could be, you know, a thing. It was nice to watch that match because you saw just how good he actually is as well. I think he's got, you know, this aggressive style. He's got this aggression to him that helps with the style, and especially with the group that he's with as well. That will take him, I think will take him very far as well. And I think it's even more a test, the fact that he's got this disability and can still be as good as he is with, you know, we don't necessarily see it, but if you know enough of how wrestling works, it's a hell of a lot to do with communication as well.
Yes.
A hell of a lot to do with communication. So for a guy to be, you know, deaf, partially deaf, to be able to do all that stuff and not even look as though it's a problem to him, is crazy. So shout out to him as well.
With get the TV being partially deaf, no one should sleep on that, because especially now when we go to the Neil program and how they like have their process of elimination for people to make it to TV, like you're very good at what you do. Like, there obviously still a level of development needed, but like, it should not be slept on. Like, he's got something.
Yeah. And even to go back to what you were saying before, Mex, you know, about you know, Tavion being in the position where he has to show something now. I think that's also a testament to the way development is these days compared to before. Whereas the likes of a Shelton and Jason Jordan were coming through when development was kind of like they were trying to work it out almost. You know, you've got Stevenson who's come through because, you know, he was an Olympic champion. He had that to rest on. Then, you know, Damon had the fact that Gable was his brother. But he showed himself well enough, you know. But whereas Tavion, as you said, has to show literally everything now. That's the way the development's going at the minute. When I've seen them kind of, you know, seen clips of, you know, whether they're looking for the next Neil students and stuff like that, they're looking for charisma. You'll see it all the time in the clips. You'll see Matt Bloom talking about charisma and, you know, show your character and all that kind of stuff. And other current NXT stars, when they go over to the universities, you'll hear them saying the same thing about charisma. Bianca Belair, when she went to one of them a few months back, charisma, personality, blah, blah, blah. So it is extremely important. That part of it is extremely important, definitely. To our last point, very quickly, we haven't talked about this, but we noticed, I believe now 2 weeks ago, we saw Cedric Alexander and Ashanti Adonis turn up on NXT. We saw them separately, kind of in the same scene, but entered separately. But now, last week, we saw them together. Ashanti's already kind of ruffled some feathers with Metaphor, of course, and I don't blame him whatsoever for what he did, because if I was in that same room, I'd probably do the exact same thing. Sorry, Oro. Not sorry, Jakara. But we see Ashanti will face Oro Mentor today on today's NXT. Gerard, do you feel as though this was the perfect move? This was a good move for them. Sorry, we did see that for a short time from the start of this year that they were a tag team on SmackDown. We didn't really see them on SmackDown, but they were doing live events and stuff like that. Yeah. Do you think this is a good move for Cedric and Ashanti?
We've been waiting for this, honestly, for Cedric Alexander. We've been waiting for this. Sorry, jet lag. We've been waiting for this for Alexander. And so the one thing that he never got was a run in NXT. You know, he did the whole Cruiserweight Classic, and then he shows up in 205 Live, and he's always been in that space. But you always wondered I always wondered, what would it be like to have him in NXT? To now have him in this space in NXT, it is going to be amazing. And then, you know, Ashanti the Adonis was always kind of in a faction, you know, there's always the one guy who does the least. He was that guy, you know, when it came to Hit Row. And then, you know, sans Shane Strickland, you know, they kind of did what they could when they went back to SmackDown. And then in the tag team, we never really got to see him. So we're finally going to get to see the personality and why they call him the Adonis. You know, we never really got to see that. But just what they did last week alone, brilliant. And then the whole potential conflict that you have with big brother, little brother of sorts. Like, dude, you know where we at. Why are you acting like this? Act like you have home training. You know, like it was great to see. And then to see Jakara in the space where she now kind of has a little love interest, you know, and remembering how she treated Lash Legend during her time with Trick, like and they encapsulated all of that in a good 60 seconds. That's how you do it. That's how you present people. That's how you create a story. Because to your point, you know, one of the things that people love in wrestling as fans is, can we see ourselves? Yeah. You know, do we see ourselves represented? And a lot of times when we talk about representation, we talk about people who look like us. But let's talk about people who might act like us. That's what we like to see with Stone Cold. You know, the whole idea of you get to fight your boss. We all would love to do that. And so in this particular case, you know, the IWC, they talk. They all love Jakara Jackson. They all love Lash Legend. And they all would love to be the one to kind of holler. And so at this point, Ashanti now gets to do what a ton of other men would love to do. They're going to love that. You're going to immediately appeal to that. That is brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant. And yeah, we all want to know what's going to happen. That's why we like it. So again, I think it was a brilliant way to introduce them, a brilliant way. And now we're interested. It's amazing how in 60 seconds, we became more interested in Ashanti the Adonis than we have his entire WWE career. So yes, they positioned both of them extremely well. Wait to see what's going to happen tonight.
And I think it's the interesting part about this with those two is going to be the big brother, little brother type of scenario.
Yes.
You've seen this braggadocious, don't care Ashanti doing whatever the hell he wants to do, talking to whoever he wants to. Yeah. I wish I was him. But, you know, then you've got Cedric, who almost and almost in a way, he almost has to think about the fact that this could be his last chance as both Cedric, the real guy, and Cedric, the wrestler.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that dynamic is going to be interesting. Mex, how are you seeing this dynamic for Cedric playing out in NXT? Is it too late, or is it still a good time for Cedric to be in NXT?
It's good because he was previously doing nothing on the main roster, you know. So in the last 2 weeks, we've seen him twice, and like Gerard was saying, you know, the biggest compliment is that in those two segments, even though, you know, you could say, especially the one last week, he wasn't like the lead in the segment, you know. He played his part in the segment, and you're maximizing your minutes, and that's all you can do when you're put on TV. You're told, go and deliver this in 2 minutes, and you don't want to, you know, think, oh, I've messed up my 2 minutes. So, yeah, he's doing the good stuff. I think again, we recognize that post Mania, that men's division was really gutted. No Melo, no Breaker, no Dragunov. They're leaning on TNA, which is good and is working for them. But we've got these guys as well. I would love a Cedric Alexander like run with a title. I don't care what title it is, like North American, NXT title. Like I wouldn't care, but I fear that he could just be there to obviously help the younger lot along. But there is still so much that he has to offer. I'm absolutely sure of it. So yeah, I think he has to see this as last chance ish as well. I'm sure, you know, he's not stupid. That's probably dawned on him, but he's got the opportunity now. So it's time to get to work and get that character over.
I think it is, you know, a case of last chance. That could have been said a year ago, 2 years ago. You know what I mean? But I think he's now been given a chance, and we're seeing him on TV. It's not just he's been given a chance and he's going to be on live shows. He's now going to be on TV.
Right.
And I think he definitely has to, and I'm sure he understands this as well, that he has to maximize his minutes and do the best that he can with the role that he's given him, whatever that role is, whether that, whether there is, even if there's no plan for him to hold a championship or for him to be at the top of the card, make the most of every single chance that you get now in NXT. And I think as well, we talked about MVP, Bobby Lashley, even Shelton kind of being the tail end of their careers. I don't want to say that Cedric's at the tail end of it. He's a lot younger than the rest of them, but I think in terms of how he's being used in WWE over the years, it could be said that, you know, he's not got a lot of time, and as you said, not a lot of chances left, to make a big impression and have this type of exposure over the next few years. So what he does now may change that. I think there's a possibility of that happening. But yeah, it definitely is a chance for him to kind of make the most of where he's at now. And I think even to look at it in helping Ashanti as well, get to where he's at again. He's very young, relatively young in the business and stuff like that, but he hasn't been used well. And I think it's even for him, regardless of his age, even for him, it's almost a bit of a last chance type of scenario with him as well. And I'm glad to see them, and I really want to see them do well. I know both of them are amazing in the ring. They just need their chance to do what they've got to do. And let's see what happens from here. It's also great to see Oro Mensah on the TV so often. Just to hear him talk. Brother.
My brother.
My brother. I think he's phenomenal. I think he's great as well. And it's just great to see him getting the amount of exposure he's had over the last couple of months. Even, that whole thing with the history of his upbringing, and, getting to tell that story. Him being involved with Ethan Page the way that he has so often. He's had matches against, I think Tony D'Angelo was one of them. He's had some quite prominent matches on TV in NXT and stories over the last couple of months, so that's great to see as well. It's going to be interesting to see how this one plays out. I remember.
Sorry, I'll just add quickly. I remember, obviously, when NXT 2.0 was the thing. And many, including myself, kind of compared it to like a high school sort of thing, just like the way they were just bringing in these extravagant characters, sort of thing. And they've clearly, winded that so far back now, sort of thing. But even with segments like Trick and Lash Legend and what we got last week between Jakara Jackson and Asante Diadonis, there's still that high school element. Like there's still that, young people being young people kind of stuff. It's just booked so much better. It's not as aggressive and in your face with all the colors and all of that nonsense that they've done before. It's just like, it's more mature viewing, but it's still the immaturities, if you like, of young people. We always say it. NXT is probably one of the best shows on TV every week.
Oh, for sure. Oh, consistently, like it's the one that I watch. You know what I mean? And you know what? Going back to that whole high school similarity thing, like I still view it like that. And like you said, but just in a more mature, not so in your face, a lot, wind down a little bit, because you still got the whole chase you thing for one,
right?
That's the fraternity or whatever, or the student union, you've got the popular kids who are Metaphor, Trick Williams, you know what I mean? You've got the foreign exchange students who come in, you know what I mean? Like your Oro Mensa and a few others, you know what I mean? Even some of the Canadians will be viewed as foreign exchange as well in the US. You know what I mean? And Ilya Dragunov was another one. I think there are still all of these things that you see in like the high school, like movies or shows that you can, you've got the bully, you've got the prim and proper people, you've got the Mean Girls, you know what I mean? You've got all of that happening, and I think, they're still playing on that. That's still their base. That's still their foundation of their storylines, the characters, the way everything operates, and I think it's perfect. A perfect way to do it. It's development at the end of the day. They're all learning. It's the whole point. Axim's another foreign exchange student. Sorry, I'm just going through him in my head. But yeah, I think with how NXT is, it's a perfect balance of everything in so many ways. But yeah, we could probably talk another hour just about NXT alone. So let's not even start, guys. This has been WrstlXtra. You have been watching on the WrestleManiac UK YouTube channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe to see when this guy Mex puts out all of his reactions and news from WWE, AEW, everything else in between. You can also find Mex on the Wrestling's YouTube channel. Catch the Mandem every single week as well as Wrestling's House, which is phenomenal. Please go and check it out if you haven't already. You're missing out, Gerard. I hope you've seen something.
I have to watch. I'm going to catch it this week for sure.
Go see it. I'm telling you, it's different. It's different, boy. It's different. You can also find Mex. I don't know why this fly is getting on my nerves right now. You can also find Mex himself on Instagram, WrestleManiac.uk and WrestleManiac UK on X. Find the omnipresent man when he's not in Las Vegas on all things Bonafide. On all things Bonafide. You can also find him on his own show, The Faction Show, as well as WWT Live every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday over WWT Pod. Of course, you can also find Gerard doing all of his commentary and broadcasting for Ashe Wrestling, Southern Honor Wrestling, IWE Wrestling, All Caribbean Wrestling, Nightmare Factory, Turnbuckle Championship Wrestling. Keep going, keep going, keep going. Oh gosh, you can find me in the one place you can find me, which is Black Wrestling Alliance on Instagram. You'll see me pop up every now and again in different places, WWT Live sometimes, and every now and again on X, BWA Dazzle. Guys, but you will always see me here every single Tuesday, live. Don't forget to find us, and we will see you again next week.